Testing. Okay, folks. Okay, folks. Kevin. See ya. Nice to see each of you this evening. I noticed somebody was complaining that I was running people away, the seats last week, and now look at this week, all these empty seats. But here come more people. It's nice to see each of you this evening. Appreciate you being here. And we're going to continue talking about the tombs and death and burial in New Testament times, especially New Testament times, because that is of interest to us a great deal. I'd like to begin our class with prayer at this time. Brother Curley, would you direct us, please? Amen. Okay, I wanted to begin with this picture because it's something I told you about earlier, and I ran across the photograph. I had two of them, one of them with the men using these scythes, is that what they are? And so they can stretch out. I've seen other people using shorter ones, even little ones that are hand and having those in order to cut grain, but they were able to cut at a distance, and I'm sure they got far enough away not to hit each other. And they posed gladly for the photograph. This was north of Antioch of Syria, which is in Turkey. And it's one of the places, hit by the earthquake up there not very long ago. So I want to move now directly continue talking about the tombs of the first century. So I'm going to show you a number of tombs that have rolling stones or that are cut in solid rock, like the tomb of Jesus. We noted last week that we have a new tomb in which no one had ever been placed. We had a rock tomb. We had a tomb that was cut in the rock. It had a rolling stone, and also there was a guard placed at the tomb. All of those things were very important. So when we look at this one, it is one of the nicest examples that I have seen. And when I first started traveling to Israel, I couldn't have seen this. But sometime during that process, and I don't recall exactly what year, this one was discovered. It's right on the side of a road, of a highway, paved highway. And when you stop there and take a look at it, there is now a curb, like, for example, it would be maybe right here. And so it's not as good a photograph now as it was earlier because you could stand back in the oncoming traffic, And I guess that was the reason they put the curb so it would keep people away. But there was more than one tomb found in this complex. These are Roman tombs that were here. And this is very near Mount Carmel, near the site where Elijah contended with the prophets of Baal. So as you leave that mountain and you go down into the Jezreel Valley, go down toward Megiddo, that's where this tomb is found. On the blog, I have placed the navigation controls. What are those? The GPS. I've put those there. So if you look up Rolling Stone Tomb, something like that on the blog, then you will find this, and you'll find that there is the navigation. You can put that into your computer and Google Earth or one of those programs, Google Map, and it will take you right there. It'll fly you right over there, and there will be the tomb. So, isn't that pretty neat that you can do that? And that's a way to know where this is. So this really does exist. They were building the road and hit these tombs. So there are several others that are on the hillside, and I want to show you what is included in some of the tombs. This is what happened. That's the rail on the outside protecting me. And when you come here and you want to look in and see what's happening, you're just like the people of New Testament times, because you remember that it was Peter and John who were going to the tomb. And John, because we believe he was the youngest of the apostles, we have evidence that he was living well into the latter part of the first century. And therefore he was an individual who was in better condition than Peter, and he outran Peter, and he got there, but he waited. He didn't go in. And it tells us that they went in, stooping. That tell you anything about the way tombs were? They were cut in the rock, and you had to stoop in order to go in. They were not open like what tomb? They were not door high like what tomb? Like a mausoleum. I'm thinking about in Bible illustrations. What tomb did we look at last lesson? A tomb that had a door that's almost high as a person. I'd have to maybe do like that, but some people in here wouldn't have to. The garden tomb. See, that's not the right kind of tomb. It doesn't fit that description. So here they looked in, they stooped down, they looked in, and in order to see. And they saw clearly. John went on in, and he saw the things that were there. He saw the linen cloths, and he saw the napkin that had been around the face of Jesus, and so on. Now, I'll show you some more. This is at Bethphage, how you pronounce that. If you said it in Greek, it would be what you have down here. Bethphage would be the name, way you would pronounce it. But the way we say it in English is just Bethphage. And I wanted you to see where it is located. Do you see the house that is right there in the end of the picture? And do you see the hill? And you see the trees on the top of the hill? That's the Mount of Olives. So we are on the east side of the Mount of Olives. The wilderness is to our back. You got it? The Jordan Valley is to our back. The Dead Sea is to our back. All right, so we're looking at that. And what other town is close by that was always associated with Bethphage? Bethany. All right, Bethany. If you took the road where the tree is down to the left, you could never get to Bethany. Why not? Because the Israelis have a wall that's about 12 or 15 feet high, and you'd have to climb it, and I wouldn't want to try that. Even if I could climb it, I wouldn't want to try it, because there are usually men there that have nice-looking rifles. So, some people who live in the other town are able to cross through to take care of business matters and things of that sort. But that's the way it is around Jerusalem and in the Middle East. All right? Look at the tower that is directly over right here. See that one? That's on the top of the Mount of Olives. Anybody know what building that represents? Okay, that is supposed to be, it's shown as, the place where there is the ascension of Jesus. We don't know where it was. In fact, the text says he was out near Bethany. So I would take it that he was already over the hill and at Bethany. Bethany, in order to get to it these days, you have to go on the main highway that goes from Jerusalem to the Dead Sea. Then you come to a village, a town, little town that is there. You make a right turn, and then pretty soon you run out of paved road, and then you go on bad gravel road for a few miles, and you come to the Arab town. It's an Arab town of Bethany. So Bethany and Bethpage. When you go to the Middle East, you've got to be prepared to face all the problems that are there, because that's the way it is. And so it doesn't mean that you're going to, in fact, tourists basically don't go there, but you can go there if you really are interested in it and want to. So that's the Mount of Olives. If you were standing in front of that tower, then you would be looking to the west, and you would see the city of Jerusalem, the old walled city, as well as in the distance beyond it, the new city of Jerusalem. So you'd see all of that. So if you just could lift yourself up or be in a plane, you'd see all of that in this one picture. So what is here? Well, years ago, I read about this place, and I came to it, and I almost didn't find it this time because, or I was here another time before this picture, but because the terrain has changed so much. Buildings have been put up. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes that destroys ancient things, and especially when you're in the West Bank area, they'll build right up to on the edge of a tell or something of that sort. So here we are. We're going to look at what is here, and there are several tombs. This one, as you can see, has a rolling stone. Some of these are from different periods. Some are from Herodian, some are Roman, and some are actually into the Byzantine period. But so I'm not sure which one this is. Here is the interior. It's what we studied about. You go into the tomb. The one at near Megiddo is the same. You go into the tomb. You can sit down on this raised area here. You could be there to visit with the family. You could help in preparation with the body if that's what you were going to do, like the ladies brought the ointments and so on for the burial of Jesus. And then what else do you see in this picture? Even though it's not a great picture, but what do you see? What's this up here? I'm doing the wrong thing. What's this right here? That's where you can put the ossuaries. That's called starts with a K, Kokim. Remember? You go in, you have a area that you can, be free to sit down. You can visit with family members who might be there grieving, and you can help with the body. And then, at a time when the time comes that they want to do that, they can place the body in the Kokim. So the tombs have that. Now, I believe in this one, and also the one at Megiddo I was showing you, that you can go to either side, and they're also Kokim. So you have these on all around. So the whole family could be buried here over a period of time. Now, here is another tomb with a rolling stone. This one is in Heshbon in Jordan. Heshbon was one of the places that the children of Israel passed as they approached the Holy Land. They approached the Promised Land. And this one is a little bit different because the rolling stone is not in like a rut. It's not in something that's been carved out for it to roll in. But rather, it is held in by another piece. So if I take this, I say, well, we're going to have to build this. So we build this to get into the tomb, to keep the stone in place. So now the stone, though, rolls. Same situation we've talked about before, that the stone rolls, and the stone will, let me go back, the stone will roll across the door. I learned about this one in probably the 70s, And we used to go to Jordan every year. In the earliest tours, we went to Rome, Athens, Cairo, Beirut, Damascus, Jordan, several places in Jordan, particularly Amman and maybe Jerash and also Petra. And then we would cross over into Israel. And most of your time was spent in Jordan. And my first trip, the old city of Jerusalem, was in Jordan. So we only spent 2 days or 3 days in Israel proper and saw everything that was there. Because most everything was in Jordan at the time. But after 1967 and the war, then of course Israel took over all of that, except leaving some places like Jericho and others in the Jordan Valley that would be under the control. And the Dome of the Rock is under the control of the Jordanians. All right, so this one I learned about, and I found it out in a field. I found a young man in the neighborhood who knew where it was, and so that made it easier to go to it. And I'm leaving that one. And we're going back now to another one in Jerusalem. This one is called the Herodian Family Tomb. Herod the Great built this. So you know Herod the Great, he built the Temple Mount. He built palaces all over the country, fortresses. He built Caesarea and so on. So he was a real builder. He had a reputation for that. And what's that? Masada. Oh yes, Masada. And wherever he had one, Carl, across the Jordan Valley, there was one that paralleled it. So across there's one in Jordan that looks to the, so he can see from all directions. And that's where really Herod Antipas had his place, and he left, and that's where he had John the Baptist put to death. So the family, the Herodian family, had all of these things. And so this one is a family tomb, not for Herod. Herod died at Jericho in a smaller palace that was there. And he wanted to be buried in Bethlehem at the one he had built there, at the fortress he had built. And that's the one I told you that the professor who was working there fell and hit his head, but now all of this has been uncovered. All of it has been found. And I'm hoping to see this right away so that I can understand exactly. So now we're looking at this tomb. Here's a picture of it with, what do you see up here? A rolling stone. See that? And that rolling stone, this one does have a modern door so they can close it and lock it. But this one has a rolling stone. You can see it there. It's kind of fixed in, so you can't pick it up and take it home with you. And it comes on over that. And there are several people. I really don't know how many. And so, anybody got a question? Yeah.
What would the tombs have if they did not have a rolling stone? Did all the tombs have a rolling stone? If they didn't have a rolling stone, what would they do to it?
I haven't seen all of them. I think they had to have a rolling stone. Yeah, they had to have a stone of some kind to cover that. I have seen an article by a person in who works in Jerusalem, teaches in Jerusalem, and he claims that the stones were square, and so you still would have to roll, but that'd be much more difficult. Personally, I have never seen one of those, but I have seen probably over the years 6 or 8, probably 8 different. Maybe that's not counting the ones there at Bethpage because there are several in a row. But I've seen that many in the country and in Jordan, and I don't know of one that has any kind of stone other than the rolling stone. They what? Oh yes, many of them could be rolled. That depends on the size of it. The one there at Bethpage is very small. It's really a very small opening, and it wouldn't be quite as difficult. They also, the one like at the where was it there? We had the Tomb of the Kings, which really is the Queen of Adiabene. It is in a kind of a sloping place like this, and so it would roll rather easily once you got it started. In fact, when you look at it, they've put some rocks under it to keep it from rolling. And maybe, I don't think I've shown that picture, have I? Maybe I'll get to it in a minute or two. We'll see.
Okay, that just looks like perfect round. How did they make it? I mean, they didn't have stuff like we do. I know they rock covers and all that, but it looks like it fits right there and it rolls. I mean, that's just
Not all the smart people live in America,
how did they do that?
and they don't all live this century. Now, that's a mistake that we make, thinking that we're the only smart people that have ever lived, and it is not true. And that's one of the things I learned in my travel over the years. And the other big lesson that I learned is that everybody's the same. They all want to earn a living and go home to their family at night. Everywhere in the world, that's the way people are. Now, there are a few bad ones, and there are a few bad ones everywhere you go. But basically, that's true of people that I have met. No matter what country I've been in, that's the way it is. I've got a hand over here.
One question, Frank.
Let's see, how old is Aunt Sally? Oh, yes, they'd open it up. They would open it up. Yes, it would be. And so then, after that burial, now, we'll talk in a minute what happened once the body decayed. So that comes next. So we've got to take care of that. No, none of these are used today. No, they're the ones like the Tomb of the Kings, which is so fabulous looking. It would be used for people to visit, and for items from it to be in the Louvre and so on, because it's French. No.
When you had the time of the Roman tomb, was it just the time that Rome was ruling the country, the tomb was made, or were they by Romans, for Romans, adopting?
No, it was used in Judea and the whole period of the first century up to the AD 70, up till the time of, people had to flee from there. So that was about the end of it, and then after that, a different style picks up, and Byzantine tombs become familiar. It's not really Roman. No, it's Judean. It's Judean. Who else? Over here, somebody I thought had their hand up. Okay, now I'll try to show you more now that I see what you're interested in. But look at this one. This is a secondary burial. Secondary burial is after the body decays, approximately 1 year was the rule of thumb. Then you go in and gather the bones. You see, you've got to also seal this tomb in the sense of putting something around it to keep down the odor. Also around the body, you have got to prepare it so that there are these ointments, maybe 100 pounds or more of various ointments would be buried with the body, and the linen cloths that are mentioned in connection with Jesus. And so look what happens. This is on the Mount of Olives as you go down from the Mount of Olives, the top of it, down to the Garden of Gethsemane and down to Kedron Valley and Jerusalem. And they discovered, this has not been too many years ago, in the 50s these were discovered. And so this one had all of these ossuaries here. They're just placed here and there. This is probably much like the way they were found. In other words, they're stacked there. is pretty much full. There's an opening in the rock back in the center of the picture at the top. And again, you have ossuaries that are there. The ossuary typically is only long enough for the longest bones, the leg bone and so on. And so they would be placed there. So all the bones would be in the ossuary. And see what I've got. I'll show you some ossuaries. If you were wealthy, you would get a silver-plated model. You know, you would get this one right here, like this. You'd have somebody. Now I'm going to talk about, somebody asked a question. My next lesson, it's already here in front of me, but we won't get to it. My next lesson is on trades in Bible times, and I'm going to put a lot of emphasis on stonework, because that's all they had, stone. And so all over the country, they made things of stone. And so we'll take a look at that. But here is the ossuary. This one, they spent a lot of money to put these rosettes on the side, the little designs, the little stars or whatever they are on the top. Here's one that looks a little bit better with a little more design on the side of it. And you can see these also even for infants. And so they're small, of course, you know. And the tomb of Caiaphas was discovered. That's very interesting when you find it has the name of somebody who is of significance in Bible history. And it was discovered in 1990, and the text says in John chapter 18 that Annas therefore sent Jesus bound to Caiaphas, the high priest. He wasn't. He was the son-in-law of the high priest, but he was serving as the high priest at that time. And so here's what we know about this. It says on the tomb, Kapha. That's Caiaphas. It says Yosef, Bar Kaffa, and that's son of Joseph. See, he's the son of Joseph. He is Joseph, is his name, and he is the son of Caiaphas. So his name is Josephus, or Joseph. Okay, what is the significance of that? Josephus, the Roman historian, the Jewish historian who wrote about the Roman capture of the whole country in his Wars and other books, the history of the Jews and so on, he says that his name was Joseph Caiaphas. So see, taking what the Scripture says, what the tomb says, and what Josephus said, and it all blends together. That's the beauty of studying the Bible. It is in harmony with known history. And we need to take really serious thought to anything it says that this is the way it was in those days. Okay, look at this one. That is the tomb of Caiaphas. That is, it is the ossuary that was found there. Larger perhaps than he needed, but large enough for the man. This would be the idea. And you can see how beautiful it actually is. That's in the Israel Museum and can be seen anytime it's open, unless it's somewhere else. And you find that in museums. When you go to museums, that there will be some item that's out for photographing, or it has been on loan to the Louvre, or on loan to the British Museum, or on loan to Harvard, Semitic Museum, and so on, something like that. And that can happen as well. So when the disciples looked in, what did they say? He is not here. He is risen. The women saw first, and they came and told Peter and John. Peter and John went to the tomb, and then this was the conclusion that they had come to. Because after all they had seen, and they knew Jesus had died. The theory that Jesus didn't really die is just weak as dishwater. It's very weak. He is not here. He is risen. And I wanted you to see something else. Now that's all on those tombs. I want to talk about the city of David and where it is located right now and move into a question we had last week. Anybody have any more on the tombs? Okay, there are others. I saw one time, and I don't know, I wondered about it, and I don't even know that the building serves the same purpose. But it used to be, when the city was still divided into Jordan and Israel, when Jerusalem was still divided, that in the East Jerusalem YMCA, there was a tomb with a rolling stone. That is, the property was built around it, and it was inside the building. And I went there and saw it. It wasn't in the stone, as I recall, something about it was broken. But it was there, and I did see that one also. And so it's one of the ones that I have seen. I wanted to show you this map, which is one of those that you can find at Bible Mapper blog. There are maybe 100 of these almost now that you can find. And I wanted you to see the city of David, because we've had some question about David and whether the throne of David, not the throne of David, but the house of David had been found. And the answer to that is probably so. Probably so. So let me see if I can get my bearing on what's going on here. Here is the Temple Mount right here. The temple would be there, built by Herod the Great. That is, the platform that the temple will be on is there. Then you have an area that drops down, like now it would be out almost to the street, and it has been excavated by Eilat Mazar, and it is called the Milo in the Bible, M-I-L-O. The Milo would do this. Here's the Temple Mount. It slopes down. Then here comes the Milo, and that takes you over here to the city of David. This was Mazar's about it. And she began to study and began to excavate, and sure enough, it looks like she might have found it. And she is now deceased. I'll have maybe a picture of that and show you her dates. She just died within the last 2 years, I think. So we're going to go to the area right here. These are the gates. Over here is an arch. This is the lower city, and that is the city of David. That's the city of David right there. It was only about 9 acres in size. He came in, and first one of his men came in and made their way up into the Jebusite city. See, this was the Jebusites controlled it. And even though David was the king of Judea, he had been ruling from Hebron for how many years? Was it not more? Huh? 9? I thought it was 30. Or 10. Well, we can look that up. Right. And then he went to, after a while, he went to Jerusalem, right? And maybe it's 30 years there. He ruled 40 years altogether. So from around 1050 to 1010, Saul was reigning, and then at 1015, David took the throne. But it's going to be a while before he can take over the city of Jerusalem. So finally he captures it. See, this is right on the border between the tribe of Judea and the tribe of Benjamin. And it's really close to Benjamin, right on the border. And so therefore it is more likely you're talking about people who are going to rule to the north of there. And this lower city that is right here, the lower city, that's the city of David, just that little bit. What you don't see on most maps is on the east side of the Temple Mount, there is a valley, and it is called the Tyrophian Valley. That means cheesemaker's valley. So you can guess how it smelled around there. So as you go down that valley, it goes on across south, and it's on one side of the city of David, and the other side is way down deep the Kidron Valley. All right, got that? Maybe I'll have another map that can show you. I thought about that a good bit and tried to show things. The chance of discovery. Oh, I've got another thing here about tombs, and then we'll go to that one. That's a little bit out of place. In the Kidron Valley, there are some very large tombs that were mostly built between the Testaments. And there is one that is the tomb of Beni-Hezer, which is seen on the left. Look at how delicate that work is after all these years. This goes back at least to the Greek period. And then there's the one that is called, the one with the cut right out of the rock, the one that has the tower, and there are inscriptions that are on it. And that is said to be the tomb of Zechariah, or some think that one may be the tomb of Absalom. The Bible tells us that Absalom built a tomb, a monument to himself. That's really a great thing to do, you know, set up your own monument. And that's what he did. All right? I want you to look what happens sometimes when there are people really interested in these things. This man is Josias. And he is really, I've forgotten the term for him, the title, but he studies. I saw a program on streaming that was about this. It's people that study dead bodies. I mean, been dead a long time. And so he finds the bones, and they're brought into him, and he studies them, and he makes determinations as to how they died and all those things. So Josias found that there was an inscription on the side of this tomb. Let's look at it. Let me go back and show you the tomb. There's the inscription over on the left. See it flashing a little bit? That was something at the time it was found, that was placed. So it didn't really show. And I heard or read his article, and I've met him at a professional meeting, and he said that he would leave his office and he would go down there just at the time that the sun was going to be setting on that area. And so that changes just a teeny bit every day. So he kept up with that, and he would go down there, and he would sit there, and he would look and watch the shadows. And finally, he saw this image on the side of the tomb. And when he transcribed it, you can see what it says. There's the way it looked, the second and third line. And then in printed letters, you have it the way it looks in Greek of that time. It would be classical Greek. Then you have it in more modern Greek, as we would have it in our New Testaments. And it says, in translation, this is the tomb of Zechariah, the martyr, the holy priest, the father of John. Is that true? Well, I don't know. I never met Zechariah. So, I see no reason to doubt it. I have never in my life doubted a tombstone. If it names that somebody's there. I heard Brother Cope tell a story one time about being somewhere in Texas at a cemetery he was visiting. Preachers visit cemeteries a lot. No, it's true. Especially if somebody historic, you know, some well-known preacher or something of that sort is buried there. We'd like to go see that. And so he said he was at this cemetery, and he saw one that had the inscription, and it said, "Follow me," and then the person's name and so on. And he said there had been a note left, and they couldn't help but looking at it, and it said, "To follow you, I'm not content until I know which way you went." So that's a pretty good advice, I would say. And this would be very interesting if this was actually the tomb of Zechariah. It might be. So here is a translation by somebody at the École Biblique, that is an outstanding French school. That's where they have that set of tombs that are just like the one at the Garden Tomb. And he translated it to be the tomb of Simeon, who was a very just man. He was old and very devout, and he was waiting for the consolation of the people. And that's almost exactly what Luke 2:25 says, that it describes Zechariah in that way. So it could be his tomb, and that's not something you've heard anywhere else, right? How many have ever heard that before, that story? Well, good. I like to teach people things that are new. So is it genuine or is it fake? I'd be more inclined to say it's genuine. Now, I wanted to tell you a little bit about this one. This is the James ossuary. And this was quite the rage a number of years back. There was a discovery about it, and articles in Biblical Archaeology Review. And there was the professional meetings for biblical scholars, and this includes maybe 5,000 or more that come from all kinds of schools that have religion, whether they teach Buddhism or Christianity or Judaism or liberal or conservative or atheist or whatever. There are a lot of atheists who teach religious courses. And so they decided they would bring this over to that meeting. And it was shipped over. This guy had said that he had found this tomb, and it had the name of James on it. James, the brother of Jesus. So here's the inscription. See two examples of it on the left, one with the letters painted in. So you can see that. It's an Aramaic, Yaakov. Yaakov is Jacob, or James. Bar Yosef, the son of Joseph. James, the son of Joseph, brother of Jesus. So it had all of that on it. Okay, as it was shipped, it got broken. Shipped from Jerusalem. And so when they received it and opened it up at the Toronto Royal Ontario Museum, it was broken. The people there patched it up the best they could, and this was the inscription. Now I know tonight to close in 5 minutes, all right? Sorry about the other night. And so there is the inscription, and here's what it says. And this is the guy that says he found it. And I met him, asked him how long he had it, and he told me, how many years he'd had it. But in 2002, it was declared to be a fake, and 2004 rather. And his name was Golan, Oded Golan, and he had all kinds of antiquities, and a number of them were declared to be fake. So he was indicted for taking antiquities, for faking them rather, in 2004. This went through the court system in Israel for a number of years before he was done. Here is the James after repair. So they still left the place where it was broken. You can see that. And this is the way they found it. And they found something else, a little something of repair or something on one side. And you see the cracks that are there in it. And then I wanted to show you some ossuaries from the same period. And these have rosettes on them. These are at that museum. They are small ones. I don't know, how long a bone you can put in there. And there's an ossuary that was there, small ossuary, along with that one. And there was a big panel meeting that was there at that time by the Society of Biblical Literature, and telling about it, and the people, Andre Lemaire, he's an outstanding epigrapher. He reads inscriptions. He said it was real at first. This was his saying. I don't know what he said later on. And then Mason, Steve Mason from Canada, is an expert on Josephus, and he was on the panel. And then somebody from Australia and somebody from Canada, and then Eric Myers from Duke, and then Shanks, who's now deceased, who was editor of Biblical Archaeology Review. He had published it. And of course, he would do things like that to cause people to think and to study and to talk. It made more articles for him. And so there are some of those people that are there. The Religious Studies News said this about it. It said the media buzzed about the James ossuary. It was in the papers. It would have been in the papers here. We used to have papers, remember? Obviously unused to the spirit of academic debates. The local Toronto paper described the panelists as pugilists. And what this goes on to say is they should have realized these guys are just discussing an issue. You're not mad at one another or anything of the sort. You're just talking about it and discussing it. And people change their views as they go along. So anyway, that's that. And I think that's just about what I wanted to tell you about tombs. And, well, we'll not get into that. And next time, I hope to begin. We don't have but about 5 lessons left. And I hope to study the trades of Bible time, particularly stonework. Okay? Have a nice trip to the auditorium. How you doing?
David was king of Hebron for 7 years and 6 months.